Today we are talking about a handful of legends you need to be using right now to improve your gun skill, your awareness, positioning, and your overall ability just to play a little bit more tactically. Obviously, using the best legends in the game will generally lead to better results, but there are a few very specific legends who are not per se the meta of the game, but are legends who can greatly improve areas that you might be lacking, and there's some that you might not be thinking about. Do me a huge favor and hit that like button. Let's get started. The first recommendation I do have is for creative pushing, and this is going to be Mad Maggie. Maggie can let you work on a number of things, but the one thing I do want to highlight is understanding timing and capitalizing on your moments in Apex Legends. The main reasoning behind this, though, is going to be her tactical drill. The drill comes back very fast, and its activation or the use of it is also pretty quick. The damage is kind of negligible, as players generally are going to move out of the way of that drill, but this is where it really counts. This is going to allow you to force movement on enemies, which is huge. Anytime you can control a fight and have enemies do what you want to do to them, this is the way. Grenades can also do this, but obviously they are not as readily available, as you are not always going to have a grenade, whereas that tactical drill does come back very fast, and thus you're going to have a lot more practice if you do play with Mad Mags. Second to the drill will be her ultimate ability, the Wrecking Ball. Displacement, speed boost, and disorientation is all a playmaker. I do think it's a little bit harder to actually use it with effectiveness than the drill. The further and further you are away from enemies when you do use the Wrecking Ball, the harder it is to connect to them, and the more easily players will be able to move out of the way. If you can get within, say, 30 to 50 meters when you do use the ball, your chances of displacing them and being able to clean them up real quick is going to be much easier. Mad Maggie's kit overall is a little weak in terms of its team utility or the meta though, but the focus here is truly just on building your skills with being aggressive and understanding how important opportunities are. And since the drill does come back quick, again, you're going to be able to do this a lot, and the more opportunities you get, the faster you will improve. Second up is going to be the continual fan favorite and one of the most picked legends, which could be a problem on its own, but this is going to be Octane. If you've played Apex for any sort of time, you probably have seen Octane in action. Simplicity is key for our favorite stim junkie. There's not a lot to his kit, and because of this, it lets you focus on what really matters: firing your weapons. Nothing is more important than your gun skill, and getting overwhelmed by some legends' abilities is a huge negative when you are trying to improve. For Octane, his passive just works, and the only semi-skillful thing that you need to know is if you should or should not be using his stim ability. Other than this, you can simply just focus on shooting, and if you get some big damage, you can stim or pad into battle, which does help speed things up. And in general, less skilled players or newer players need this speed boost to be a little bit more flexible and mobile, as it will help them learn movement as well as firing your weapons. Apex is a movement-centric game, so of course, if you can accelerate that, it's just going to be helpful. It also helps a ton that Octane is pretty fun for most players, so if you do want to improve your gun skill and you don't want to feel overwhelmed with your character, you should give Octane a look at as one of those first legends you play. If you are struggling with just straight up being more aware of what is happening, where players are, and how to better move and get from point A to point B without being slaughtered, then Bloodhound is another big recommendation I do want to give for you. The key for this legend though is just being more aware, and Bloodhound tremendously helps with this. The passive alone is just going to let you know if someone has been around recently and how long ago they were in your area, which just straight up is useful when you are struggling with understanding your surroundings. Second to this is of course just that scan ability. Scanning before you enter a fight or playing off a scan can actually be a huge crutch though, so you want to be careful when you are starting off not to have this complete awareness on the scan ability to the point where you're not doing anything unless you do have them on scan. And of course, a big benefit of Bloodhound over a couple of the other legends that we're talking about is they are straight up available right now, and you could use them as you don't need to unlock them. Again, you need to be mega careful to not be over reliant on the scan ability. I see too many times where players are just waiting and tapping that scan, waiting for it to come back. This is a useful tool, but that's what it is, a tool. You shouldn't get to the point where you literally cannot do anything unless the enemy is scanned. An additional word of warning for both Bloodhound and even Octane that we previously talked about is when you are in their ultimate ability, or when you're using that pad or using the stim even, you need to show additional care and be mindful of your team's location. You do not want to get too far separated from them, and that speed boost can make it happen pretty easily. If you are looking to be a little bit more of a smarter player, or at least a more informed player, definitely give Bloodhound a look at. There are a handful more legends to talk about, but I do want to give an honorable mention to my list of useful legends to improve, and this is going to be the OG legend of Lifeline. There is not really anyone more pure when it comes to a true team support and understanding what it means to be a team player than Apex's Resident Healer. She is not as powerful as she once was, this is absolutely true, but she is one of the only legends that can really still do a complete 180 turnaround mid-fight, and if you do want this kind of support capability, and if you do understand what it means to be a good teammate, then Lifeline is definitely a good pick. The biggest advice I will give you for Lifeline is to be holding your teammates' hands as much as you possibly can. You need to be monitoring their status, their health, if they're knocked, if they're not. This is all very good to build in Apex Legends. You should always be aware of this, regardless if you are Lifeline or not, which is why I am putting her in here. You need to be there to revive your teammates if they need it, or drop that healing drone if they do need some health. And again, if you want to be a supportive player in one of the least skill required legends, then Lifeline is definitely a good pickup even these days. One of the first legends out of my entire list that you are going to want to look at unlocking is actually going to be Loba. Slow looting is a death sentence when it actually comes to getting better at Apex Legends, and Loba is going to dramatically help you with this. I cannot sell how important or how detrimental to your game just over looting or taking too long to loot can be. If you're taking too long to loot, you're not going to have good positioning. You're going to be slow to getting to fights, and overall, you're not taking as many fights, which means you just aren't getting better at the game. Picking up items off the ground is just not improving, and you don't want this. Her passive of being able to see where those high tier armors or items on the ground off the drop ain't too bad either, and it's going to help you stay alive in the early game, which is pretty key as a new player or a less experienced player. Having the black market though as a whole is just so good to help you bypass the slowest part of Apex Legends, and if you want to be a team support player without really having to do anything other than dropping that black market on the ground, this is always good as well. Again, there's just nothing more frustrating than for me to watch a player who takes forever to loot the most basic of areas, be a little bit better, be a little bit faster. Grab Loba if you do want a little bit more streamlined experience, if you are looking to take more fights and just improve at a little bit more of a rapid pace. Next up is all about building up the skills you need to play a little bit more tactically via using buildings, general cover, and just being a little bit more aware of how to play Apex in a more creative way. I do think this legend should come after some of the other legends though, so I wouldn't pick her first, but this one is going to be Rampart. Rampart has extreme capabilities to be a flex player of defending and fortifying areas, aggressively pushing buildings, and in general, just increasing your damage output with those amped walls, which is what makes her shine. I think Rampart does require a general high game sense IQ, as you need to be really aware of positioning and how to use her walls to keep players away, while at the same time creating areas where you gotta force players to funnel into. If this sounds like something you are interested in learning, it's gonna translate to other legends as well, and I would recommend you proceed with trying Rampart. If we look at her kit of abilities as a standalone, it's really not that complex, which is definitely good, especially when you compare it to some of the other defensive legends. If you enjoy a more slower paced, maybe defensive playstyle who can be very aggressive in a moment's notice, I do think Rampart is a good pick for you. Let me know in the comments, who are you picking? What do you struggle with the most in Apex Legends? Check out this video right here if you want even more ways to improve at a rapid pace. Hit that like button, sub for more. I'll see you in the next one.